Meet Richard Loseby, creative visionary, storyteller and explorer of the human spirit. Richard is a multi-award winning creative director and the founder of Mechanic Group, an Auckland-based agency renowned for its impactful branding and storytelling. Beyond the advertising world, Richard is a celebrated travel writer and photographer. His 3 best-selling books, Blue is the Colour of Heaven, Looking for the Afghan and A Boy of China, published globally by Penguin and HarperCollins, chronicle his daring journeys through Afghanistan and China, blending personal quests with profound cultural insights. Richard's adventures have taken him from the rugged terrains of conflict zones to the serene waters of the Pacific, where he once transformed a sailboat into a floating creative studio, proving that inspiration knows no boundaries. Today he joins us to share his unique perspective on creativity, resilience, and the transformative power of storytelling. Richard, welcome to my podcast. It is so wonderful to have you here.
Thank you.
You and I have known each other for a long, long time. And in fact, we met many moons ago in radio. So it's kind of feels funny to be back here in a podcast studio having a chat. And you were a copywriter back then and I was promotions manager. And we formed a friendship and I've seen your creative side, your adventurous side develop over many years. And so I'm really excited to be talking to you today and to find out a little bit more about that essence within you.
Well, where do we start?
Where do we start? Well,
a little bit about that. About me, or what, after that time that we met, which was a while ago, in the early days of copywriting. For us both, we were starting our careers, really.
We were starting our careers,
and full of vim and vigor, and there was no wall that we couldn't break through, and probably because we were sort of just young and ambitious. But for me, it was a different road to you, and I just loved writing. So as a radio copywriter, it was the first foot in the door to the business of advertising, which I guess I thought, well, I want to be a writer. How do I make money and pay the bills? Later on, and so advertising became that automatic, entry point, and radio was the first stepping stone. So, yeah. Yeah,
opened up many doors to that creativity. And, of course, what people will hear also is you have a beautiful voice, a rich voice, which is great in radio and in advertising, if, voiceovers, those kind of things.
Yeah.
Great opportunity.
You do sort of occasionally get asked, or I occasionally get asked to do voiceovers. Yeah. Any way you can make money, really, in these.
So you've accomplished a lot. You were born in Papua New Guinea, is that right?
Yeah.
Which you're probably the only person I know who was born in Papua New Guinea. How did that happen?
Well, I think as a family, we were always moving. So, the reason why we were in New Guinea, my father worked for the Bank of New South Wales. He was in the sort of international branch. One minute he was in Sydney, and then he was, sent off to Port Moresby. Not because he did anything wrong, but that was the way that you got up the corporate ladder, I think. And as a young family, my sister was only sort of 2, and then I was born, in Papua maternity hospital, which they had one doctor and an Alsatian who did my mother tells these amazing stories, but I don't remember it except for maybe once. When I started traveling in my 20s, and of course the whole traveling thing is a huge part of my life,
yes.
I jumped off the plane in Singapore, having left New Zealand, never coming back again. But and I had this overwhelming sense of deja vu to that humidity.
Yes,
and I always wondered whether that was like coming out into the world. It was like exiting the 747. It was like, whoa, I've been here before.
You then, I think at the age of 8, moved to Australia?
Yeah, no. So after New Guinea, I grew up in Sydney, And so I am actually an Australian. And then Mum was a Kiwi, Dad's Australian.
Yes.
And then we moved to New Zealand when I was 8. So that's when, I'd never seen green before. And we ended up in Te Awamutu. So, and my best friend was Wirumu Huna Huna. And I was suddenly in a different culture. And I guess that's kind of like, I wonder how you get to be at this late age, late-ish age, how you get to be who you are. And all these little markers along the way. Even now we're talking about it, I'm going, that's interesting.
That's interesting.
And I would just fit into that society where I was immersed in Maori culture in a way through Wirumu, who actually lived at the bottom of the playing fields. And his house was very, very, humble. We lived in the bank house. It had a goldfish pond. I mean, it was like, it was flash for Te Awamutu. And Wirumu was, just automatically, I was adopted into that family. After school, and we'd all hang out and play rugby together on the weekends. And,
as you do. And I think you're right, because if you look at the beginning of your life, you travelled a lot with your family because of your father's job, moving here and there, being comfortable, moving into new cultures, meeting new people, it being a new adventure each time. At what stage did you discover your creative side? Because you have this massive creative side to you. You have a huge adventure side to you. So understanding where those came from. But tell me, when did you discover that creativity?
Kindergarten.
No,
it wasn't finger painting either. It was, I was just stories, actually, Sue. Stories and stories and stories. And thank you, for having a mother who remembered these things, because I was too young to remember them. But apparently, and she tells me this is true, that I had my kindergarten teacher convinced that my father was building a boat, a sailing boat in our backyard in Sydney, in St Ives. And I would give regular updates. It may have been a little bit later than kindergarten. Maybe I'm getting the dates wrong, but it would have been early school. And I think I believed it. Even though it wasn't there, I'd made it up completely.
Fascinating.
So I wanted to travel the world through. My father was building a boat, maybe like the Ark.
Yes.
Maybe I got it through Bible studies or something. Did they have that back then? I don't know. But and then every so often I'd give updates on the construction. And I had the teacher believing it so much so that when she saw my mother and Mum says it was in the supermarket, and she said, "Oh, Lee, I can't believe this, isn't it exciting what's happening?" And she said, "What's that?" The boat. And so I think it
was a natural gift that you had at a very young age that came out. And I think even just hearing that story, from what I know about you and your storytelling and your writing and your creativity, just is so you today. And sometimes when you talk about stories, and we're going to talk about that shortly, I don't know whether they're true, whether they're embellished, where you've added all this other stuff, but I just want to hear more.
Yeah.
So you obviously started in writing and then went into advertising. So there's this creative commercial side, there's this writing side, and this yearning for adventure. How did you, or when did you first decide that you wanted to start writing books?
So I was 24 in London, 25, and working in an ad agency, so I was in that world then, JWT. I worked on this massive account, it was like £14 million, which was a big account back then. Doesn't seem so big now. And it left. And the guy I was working with, an art director, he said, "Oh, we better lie low because we'll get found out and then we'll get fired." Well, we lasted for about 6 months, and then someone twigged that we didn't have anything to do.
Yes.
It's a big agency. It had like 800 people working for it.
Whoa.
And then I got a redundancy check, and I had been thinking about going travelling again. I'd been in London long enough, and then I bought a one-way ticket to Istanbul with this vague idea that I was going to go into Afghanistan. And I remember this is 1989, And Salman Rushdie had had the fatwa slapped on him by the Ayatollah. The war in Afghanistan was still raging with the Russians and against the poor Afghans. And so it was just a sort of an idle thought that eventually actually became reality.
And was this one of your first books?
That is. The first book was, I said, I had this whole year of time in Iran, Iraq, Afghanistan, China, and culminated in arriving back in London. This is the bad old days, so came back by a black market ticket from Beijing to Moscow, and then Berlin through the wall as the wall was coming down in Berlin.
Incredible. Yeah.
And then sat in London and wrote Blue is the Colour of Heaven. And
Blue is the Colour of Heaven. What a beautiful title. And I did actually read that book, and it is an incredible journey, but almost madness. Some of the things that you did, to think you just arrived in Istanbul and then went on this journey. Tell me about some of the most incredible moments in that journey that you had to write Blue is the Colour of Heaven.
Probably the biggest one, and because it's those junction moments. You turn left or you turn right.
Yeah.
If you turn left, everything would have been different. And that's in Iran. I found the underground headquarters. Underground meaning they were an illegal organization.
So hiding.
Hezbollah, Mujahideen,
yes.
who are Iranian-backed, but say underground. And this is up near in Mashhad, near the Afghan border. And I'd found their headquarters in basically a high wall in Mashhad with massive high sort of steel gates through which people occasionally came, Afghans with turbans and shalwar kameez and, probably hiding guns underneath their rug, the patu that they would carry over their shoulder. And I sat on the other side of the road and thinking, do I go in or don't I?
What a moment.
And the discussion between me, myself, and I was, walk away. Walk away. It'll be fine. You'll just live a happy life. No, don't. Go. Walk across the road. Walk across the road. Introduce yourself. Go in and actually I remember just going, stuff it, and got up and started walking across that dusty old road. And suddenly I was facing this gentleman with Afghan who I spoke to in the language that I understood, the Dari, and said who I was and can I speak to the commandant? And he just took me in through those big iron gates, and they clanged behind me, and life changed.
That is incredible.
From that moment.
I mean, what a moment. It's almost like the start of a movie.
Yeah.
but what inspired you? What made you want to go in there? Like, what were you looking for?
Well, adventure. Remember, only 26, I think, and I'd been traveling for months and months. I had snuck into Iran through the mountains. I didn't even have a visa for Iran. The Kurdish rebels helped me get across the border in the mountains. I mean, I'd been into Iraq and Baghdad and on a pilgrim's visa in and out from Turkey, and I'd been hanging out with the Kurds a lot. So you get used to it. It's like the more if you live by a motorway, you just get used to this sort of, you probably play there on the side, on the fringes. It becomes normal.
Yeah, true.
And then just that elevated sense of adventure becomes just average, just a normal day, survival or just, knowing what to do in the right circumstances. And it just gets worse and worse because then you're sort of raising the game. Next minute, you're in a war zone and someone's giving you an AK-47, and that's where you go, that's too far.
Yeah. Did you have that moment?
Yeah, I did, yes, because they thought I was a BBC journalist. I never said that I wasn't, but it was convenient. This is Hezbollah.
Yes.
They took me into Afghanistan in the dead of night in this captured Russian troop carrier. And I woke up in the morning, in a war zone, and I was there for a month, or maybe it was a month and a half. The fighting was raging. We were in bombed-out villages, and I was taking notes and writing, taking notes for what would be a book, and taking photographs and interviewing commanders, and they in turn interviewed me because it was a way for them to get their message out there.
Yes.
Anyway, when you get shot at, your immediate reaction is to shoot back, but not with a pen.
Yes.
So you kind of go, hand me that gun. And I remember there was just this hold on. You've stepped over the line.
Over the line. Mm.
It's not your fight. Mm-hmm. And it became personal. So at that point, I said to them, I've got to get out.
Yeah. Smart move and that wise inner voice. Clearly, you were not travelling in that country in jeans and a shirt
No.
And
No, and
how you look today.
Wasn't even my name. I had a new name.
Who did you turn into? Tell me what you
they
look
called
like.
me Masood.
Yes.
Masood Mohandaspur. I had a surname as well, courtesy of Nebi, who became a good friend and a bodyguard. Mm. And he said, "We can't say Richard. This is all in Farsi and Dari,
Yes.
no English." And we don't know Richard. That's hard. If we have to say your name quickly, it's easier if we say Masood Pain, which is like get down.
Yeah.
So that's where I became, like a brother to him.
Yes.
Actually, we were very, very close. He showed me how to survive and not tread on minefields. And,
Amazing.
and
What did you look like? What did you look like
I
in
had
those
a
days?
big beard, and I wore the big shirt, the baggy trousers. I had a turban. My particular turban was called a mendi, I remember, tied around the cap, the collar in the inside. And it was sort of I looked completely different.
Amazing. Incredible story. And I know, I think in your book, From Memory, there is some photos of you and how you looked like, and barely recognisable, I would say.
Yeah.
Do you think that journey that you had, or that adventure, changed something within you?
You can never recover from that, and in a good way. Although sometimes it's in a bad way, because then you come back from something like that, or even after writing a book, there's a great rush of adrenaline, and then it all dies down, and you need to do it again. So sometimes it can be months or years in between those moments where you need to hook into that thing that made you special,
yes,
in your own mind, maybe,
yes.
or you lived this incredible life that I still talk about now. We still talk about now, and so yes, I mean, but then of course you have to work, you have to live, and grow and have a family, and pay the mortgage and the bills.
Normality.
But for me, it was sort of 10 years later that I went back to Afghanistan. I mean, it's a longish story, but I mean, this book was published when the planes flew into New York. So 10 years later, after I was
9/11. Interesting, yeah.
Because Afghanistan became a big subject. So Penguin published it, and then we did lots of radio interviews, and I was on TV and all that kind of thing. And a lot of journalists were saying,
Came back to life again.
Yeah, well, yeah. What happened to your friends? And I said, your Afghan friends. And I said, I have no idea. I'll have to go back and find out. Which became the next book. And
Amazing.
then I had a job. I had to sort of go. They said, great, go and write this next book.
How incredible. But, that balance of coming back from an adventure that I don't think many people could even begin to understand or live through what you went through. You come back and it's, right, I'm the advertising guy again, and I'm the creative guy, and I'm getting back into that. But what a beautiful segue that inspired you to go and write your second book. And your second book is called
Looking for the Afghan. Looking for Nebi, basically.
Looking for Nebi, who was your brother.
Yeah. So I had to go and find out. I am a firm believer that you just do it. I walk across that road, and I've proven to myself that if you do that, if you step out of your comfort zone, step across that threshold into something new, be it a business or a life or a travel, you'll be rewarded.
I absolutely agree, and I think so many people live in fear of what if, and they want to know what the outcome is, that we often miss so many amazing opportunities in our life because of that fear factor, because of the uncertainty. But clearly you're a man who is looking for that adventure and is not afraid to say, yes, I'm going to go and do it.
Yeah.
So just tell me about your second book. How did that come about? What did you end up discovering?
So 2000 Yeah, it was a long time ago again. But I just worked. I was working in an ad agency called DDB. The CEO, lovely man, Marty O'Halloran, said, "You've got to go. We'll look after things here, and just fly off." So I mean, literally, I did, and the publisher wanted to me to write another book. So Looking for the Afghan became that sort of needle in the haystack story, which I can say honestly, without giving the game away, was successful. And
was it a completely different adventure to your first one?
Yeah, more grown up.
Wow.
I mean, I'm not 26. I'm now I've got kids. I've got.
Wow.
I even wrote to my children the night before a little note, a story basically that was. I can't remember what it was called now, but. They were little characters who explored the world, and they had legs all in a line, so they could never stop.
Yes.
Otherwise, they'd fall over, and they had flowers growing out of their heads. And I can't remember what we called them now, but this wonderful story was a sort of parable of me going away, but always coming back because,
So it wasn't a farewell letter.
No, it wasn't. But I just wanted to leave something behind that was not just, "Hey, kids, look after your mother."
Because I'm going off on an adventure.
I don't think I knew I would be coming back, but you don't know. I just wanted to leave something behind that was a story.
Mm-hmm. And where was the second book based? Where were you for most of your time?
In Iran and in Afghanistan again.
And did you find him?
Yeah, actually.
Without giving too much away?
Well, I don't mind. It's a strange world when you're who you are, a white European male turning up in a pretty remote part of Iran and Afghanistan. You're well known. Like everyone's talking about you, whether you know it or not. So actually, even though I was looking for Nebi, he found me.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, tell me about that.
Well, I eventually, there was this weird coincidence, but I met a young Iranian guy who I told my story to. I'm looking for Hezbollah officers in Mashhad because I was retracing my roots. And he hadn't heard anything, and he didn't really like Afghans because they were the refugees in his hometown. And anyway, so it was a bit of a political sort of problem. But then he got in touch, and he said, weirdly, I've seen a sign celebrating the closing down and the anniversary of Hezbollah, but they were shutting down, and the sign in Farsi was just between two sticks at that same headquarters.
Yeah.
But I'd forgotten where that was, but it was near the train station, so I'd been within the 100 meters of it the whole time, and I repeat the whole thing. I'm standing across the road. I'm all these years on, and I go through the gates, and I walk up the stairs.
But it was an easier decision this time.
Well, it was a quiet place, and this is in peacetime.
Yes.
There were no guns being run. There were no captured Russian troop carriers and utes. It was just older men. I mean, some of them looked a lot older than me, but these are some of them were the same guys that I had been with all those years before.
Amazing.
And they recognized me.
No.
And none of them knew what had happened to Nebi. Some thought that he'd been killed, and others, he hadn't kept in touch with this brotherhood, if you like.
Yes.
And but then word got out through Mashhad, through this city in Iran, and I'd been to Herat. I'd crossed the border into Afghanistan looking for him, and back and forth, and eventually it was in Mashhad that he'd been in touch with them. And so the next time I turned up at Hezbollah headquarters, they said, "Wait there. We'll go and get him."
Incredible. And so
it's like meeting
Nebi, a brother to you from
huge.
that adventure, is still alive, and he's there.
Has a family.
Amazing.
Works as a carpenter.
Did you recognise him straight away?
Yeah. Yes, but they all said that they thought I was a ghost, or I thought, because I hadn't been in touch, that I'd been killed after I'd left them, because I walked across Afghanistan to Pakistan, which took months, and so because I didn't get in touch. But I said, how can I write to you? You don't have an address. It's a war zone thing.
And what was that moment like when you saw each other?
Just an embrace.
Yes.
You know, that seemed to go on forever. And then just a celebration and the clapping of backs. It's all very sort of, like, look, standing back and going, is it really you?
Yeah, amazing.
Because to them, I look the same. I haven't aged as much.
And do you still keep in touch with him?
Yes,
even though I'm sure it's probably difficult.
He's a refugee in Iran, or has been for minutes. I actually don't know where he is now because we don't have this ease of internet and social media. It's not. You have to find someone. You have to go looking for them sometimes.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely.
And he doesn't write. He'd never been to school.
Oh, yeah, of course. Some of those simple things we take for granted.
Yeah.
But, it's amazing, isn't it, how you can form a connection that is so deep with someone through an incredibly unusual circumstance, that it's probably similar to a connection that you have with someone very close that you see on a frequent basis. But it was a moment in time that created this amazing bond.
Yeah. Well, it's hard to repeat something like that, but what he meant, or what they, or particularly Nebi, meant to me, I meant to them. It was reciprocal because I was this outsider from the world, from Australia or New Zealand, coming to their neck of the woods, seeing their plight, understanding the way that they were fighting for their freedom to go back to their homes, or what was left of their homes after it had been 10 years of war, and.
Quite an incredible insight, really, when you can see it from that point of view. For many of us, we read papers, we listen to the news, and it's such a different perspective, isn't it? You've been in there, seen so much, and with the real people of things that are going on, so quite a different perspective. Your third book, what inspired that? Where did that come from?
Again, I think the drug had worn out, and I'm sitting at home. This is years later, and I'm going, I want to write another book. And I just heard this. It's been kicking around for a while. This story of Mao, and because after Afghanistan and Pakistan, I'd spent a bit of time in China, quite a lot of time in China in the 1990, and I think it was there that I heard the story of his first wife, and they had a son called Mao and Hong, and the child was 2. It was given away at the beginning of the Long March in the 30s, which was the beginning of the revolution, if you like, the communist revolution, which is where we are now, and it all started with him and his wife, and I actually felt more sorry for his wife, Hurt Se-Chen. Anyway, again, bit of research on the internet now, easy. You can go and I had a Auckland University professor on the case as well, and she said, I have to say, there's no information on the boy. So
he just sort of disappeared, been given away and disappeared.
Yeah. And so that immediately was a red rag to a bull. I said, well, I think I might have to go and find him.
Red rag to a bull, another
yes,
excuse.
Red rag to a bull.
Oh, maybe I have to go there.
Yeah. So I think in between jobs that stage, but I had no time limit. But I just jumped on a plane, standing in the train station at Shanghai, and thinking, okay, how am I going to play this? The Long March was, as some of you may know, was over a year. Thousands of kilometres. Mao took the beginnings of his army and travelled the way running away from the government forces, really, to escape them up into the mountains, into the snow cap. I mean, many of them died, but they were chased by government troops all the way into the north. And I thought I could follow that path, but the child was given away right at the very start. So I thought, maybe the best thing is that I go to the end and start travelling in reverse. So I did the Long March in reverse. Then it took me less time than it took Mao, but eventually ended up in those villages, remote, rural villages where it started, and so through Tibet, the old Tibet, what is now China, of course, but incredible people and stories along the way that just filled in the time while I was kind of hoping that maybe a needle in a haystack would be found again.
And I can imagine once you arrived at those villages, you were the talk of the town again in terms of who's this guy? Who is this guy? And you're saying, well, but this is why I'm here. What unfolded after that?
Well, I realised that I was quite well known, but particularly under secondary school students who just wanted to speak English with me. And of course, they're all driven about getting into their best universities, and they had to have, very good English spoken. So I was, in some little town, I remember that was walked up to this young girl who was straight out of school, and the two male friends, heading home, and she started chatting to me, and then we went for tea with all four of us, and I started telling her the story, and she was incredible. So they took it as their kind of mission.
To help you.
Their parents were consulted, their grandparents were consulted, all that era.
Yes.
They didn't really know why I was doing it. They just thought it would be fun to help this guy, and we'd have lots of conversations along the way. So, I mean, that helped because it started to narrow down certain towns and villages and then the most amazing meeting with a very elderly man called Joe Fung Mu, who I believe was Mao and Hong, but
wouldn't admit it.
Well, there's a whole twist to that. He hated his father.
Interesting.
Because Mao had been responsible for killing his foster parents, who he'd grown up with, and knew as his mother and father from the age of 2. And he was one of the children from the Long March who were given away because Mao and Hong wasn't the only one. And so it took them a long time to even accept me to talk about it. And I just badged it away. And eventually he gave me the time, and he gave me a story, which of course came into the book, A Boy of China. A Boy of China.
Amazing. So another incredible story, another adventure that took you away. Within those 3 books, when you're writing them, when you talk about them now, how does that connect on the inside?
Oh, it's just a lot of pride and satisfaction. I mean, I sometimes, weirdly, I'll pick them up and read a chapter, and it'll just take me back. And also, I mean, as a writer, you're always critical. You're always like, this is rubbish, this is rubbish. And then sometimes if you're lucky enough to be published by, publishing companies, and they thought it must have been okay, but to open it and read something and actually be moved by it when you wrote it, I don't know whether other writers haven't, but I'm always very like, I don't think I'm a very good a writer. But then I read something then I read something I've written that I actually really like and takes me away again. I'm always writing. I mean, I'm always, finding new stories of people's lives. I guess I'm a non-fiction addict for real people and their lives.
But the essence is, what I hear from you is it has to have strong meaning behind it in terms of a connectivity. And your latest, you were telling me before we started just about your shorter stories that you're doing. But I'm really curious, how do you balance the advertising world, because you're writing books, going on adventures, coming back, going into the real world, here I am, I'm back in, creativity land, advertising, marketing, and all of that. How do you balance that in terms of what you require internally that obviously inspires you and drives you compared to the commercial world of creativity?
I guess it's still to be as good as you can be, to be a great advertising copywriter, and win awards. Principally, that was the big driver back in the agency world. Not so much now because it's I'm through that. But what I still love is turning even if it be a product or a service, is building a story around it. Because I know for a fact that all those years in advertising, the successful campaigns that I've worked on, they were all stories. They weren't annoying, like shouting at people, retail, get a sale, nothing.
Yep.
I never did that. I told stories that moved people or touched them on the sleeve, and hopefully, or made them laugh. I mean, we did a lot of humorous ads in the past, but it's again just
it still
stories.
revolves. It still revolves around their stories. What do you think the fascination is for humans and stories? What do we love about stories?
I don't know. I mean, I personally grew up with them. I mean, I think always, your parents are they're the ones who give you that interest or that desire for. I mean, Mum was always reading stories. I mean, sadly, my father died when I was quite young, so he wasn't around. But I always loved that. Is it a story or is it a song? The bear went over the mountain. I think it's a song. The bear went over the mountain to see what he could see. And I was like, what did he see? And I can still picture it. I mean, he just saw more mountains.
Yes.
I mean, it was a bit of a letdown as a kid. But actually, it's a parable for life, isn't it? Just keep walking, keep going, keep one foot in front of the other because there's more mountains and more mountains. But, don't forget to enjoy them along the way.
Well, and each mountain can be a different view. Absolutely.
Yeah.
You don't have to keep chasing something and having completely new perspectives to actually gain something that's meaningful for what's right in front of you too.
But I think we're hardwired for stories as human beings. We see them in cave drawings, they would, and in hieroglyphics. I mean, telling a story, with pictures and images of servants or bringing lions to the emperor or something like that is carved into ancient monuments. They're everywhere, and they're in a nice linear fashion too sometimes. So we have a A to B story, and we just fill the gaps with interesting chapters and highlights and low. We are storytellers because that's how we sat around fireplaces and entertain ourselves. But we're great listeners too. Sometimes we forget to listen, and in this day and age...
That day and age, I think, a lot of people need to relearn how to listen. And I love that storytelling has been around for a long time, so it continues. What is next for you? Because I know you have been a great yachtsman in the last sort of 10 years, and you've had some great adventures travelling in the South Pacific. What's next for you?
Well, we've just come back from a winter in Tonga and Fiji, sailing our boat. It's the second time that we've done that, just my wife and I now, so the kids have grown up. And again, needed that drug. Unfortunately, I married someone who was happy to come along, and so we just took off in 2022 with a boat that could do an offshore passage, and then we had a break in 23 and went this year, 2024, and just came back a few weeks ago.
And what was the adventure out of that? Like, you talk about this drug of the adventure and looking for stories, basically. So what was this one about?
It's just it's stepping out of your comfort zone, and there's a state of unease naturally when you're at sea, because it's a big open ocean.
You feel very small, and
you want to trust your boat and trust your abilities to, and your experience. So, I've had a fair bit of experience in the open ocean, but there was a time when I didn't have any, and we just went and kind of figured it out. So I just love that sense of not knowing how this is going to play out. I mean, just a little bit on edge, and I think it keeps you sort of young and mentally fit and physically fit and satiated. And if you can do it with your partner in life, even better, because it's sharing it.
Absolutely, because, I was thinking how nice that must be compared to the adventures that you've had for these 3 books, where it was very
Solo.
much you and the world. And, going back to my previous comment, how do you even share that? How do you even get people to understand what that was like? You can't really, you can describe it and take people on a journey, but it's never the same. Whereas having someone there to share it with is quite magical, to be able to keep bringing it alive as you truly remember it as a shared experience.
Yeah. And therein lies that even though I was alone, the books are for everyone to read. So, and the kids can read them, and so even though I was on my own, I still take everyone with me.
You're absolutely right, and I was going to ask you that in terms of your books. What do you hope people get out of them? Your inspiration goes into an adventure, goes into a written book. What do you hope people get out of it?
Well, just the full gamut of emotions, because they are, sometimes, laughter, tears, emotional, the hardship of a story, some of the traveling like this, the ups and downs, and lucky enough to have people who write even that still, or I might meet in the street and they go, I just read your first book the other day. I can't believe it's taking me this long. I cried.
Yeah,
not
amazing.
me. They say they cried. It's lovely for me to hear.
Yep.
That last chapter. Anyway, I actually love to hear that, because it's taken them somewhere.
It's taken them on a journey to inspire some emotion as well, and maybe get them thinking about, what they're doing with their life, what adventures they're doing.
Yeah, if they're stuck in a bit of a rut, you don't have to necessarily go and buy a one-way ticket to Istanbul, but I tell you what, it'll help, and it'll shake you out of whatever rut you happen to be stuck in. Certainly, you don't have to be living the luxury either.
No, absolutely not. Tell me, what do you think have been the challenges to really, or that you've faced to stay authentic to that adventure and that writing? What holds you back? What challenges do you find along the way?
Being a bit lazy. It's hard work writing a book. It takes a long time, and if you're self-critical, then it takes even longer. But again, that's another that's the part of that satisfaction of getting there, of the full stop at the end, and being happy with it. It's wonderful.
I can imagine that completion must be quite euphoric.
Yeah, it's quite insane how I guess ultra marathon runners. I run a few marathons, but I don't know what it's like to run hundreds of kilometers. But an ultra marathon runner, as he goes over the finish line, that thing that you've been imagining. That finish line is in your head, I imagine, in their head as well. I know running a marathon after, at about 30 kilometres, that's all you can think is just getting across that line, getting across the line. And when you get there, you fall over and it's, the endorphins kick in. Well, it's the same, like putting a full stop on a story. Yeah.
So you're back, a little bit of normalisation. Where's the next lift going to come from?
Well, good question. Very good question, because first thing is the new book, which is a collection of short stories, which I'm just sent to a publisher. I'll send it to all the publishers, but as you do, and see what kind of reaction I get, or I'll self-publish it, because that world has changed completely, and the world of podcasts and reading and audiobooks. I want to explore that. So it's another realm of adventure, in a way, of testing yourself and becoming familiar with that world. And then we'll be off again. I think we'll definitely, while you can. So another adventure.
Where do you have anything in mind?
Yes, a little bit of. So we've sold our boat now.
Yes.
As of a week or two ago, and so we're financially free. But now the plan is to potentially buy another one on the other side of the world and sail it back to this side of the world.
through some interesting countries, and I'm sure.
Yeah, and oceans, yeah. So that's what's driving me at the moment.
Another big adventure to get that drug. I love all the stories that you've told, and I have a few more questions just really personally about you in terms of, obviously this podcast is called, The Essence Within You. What does that mean for you?
Well, it's a great title, actually. I really like it because it made me think. Before we were coming here this morning, I was going, what is that essence? And I actually wrote down stories, stories, stories. And they are like air. They're as plentiful as air.
Yes.
And the more people I meet, be it in a strange country or it's just outside the house because someone was just walking past whistling a tune, and the next minute we strike up a conversation. I know that tune, and he's going, "Oh, it played at my wedding 30 years ago," and I go, "Stories,
yes.
Tell me more." And I'm more interested in his story. Talking about me is not really that comfortable or important. It's other people's stories which just make me want to put pen to paper.
Yeah. A curiosity about other people.
Yeah, that curious. I think I've always been a little bit curious, and what makes people tick. You get that from the world of advertising because you have to, but it's just leads through nicely into this sideline. Hopefully one day, maybe it'll become a full-time job. I don't know about that.
I'm sure. Who knows? You never know what doors open from this.
Yeah, true. True.
And what would be a piece of wisdom that you would perhaps share with our listeners about what you've discovered over your lifetime? All our lives are different. We all do different things. But what are some wisdom that you can share with our listeners, related to the essence within you, but also, what you do in the world and how you show up, what inspires you?
There's lots of little things. Of course, being a parent, you're always teaching your children, giving them wisdom that they never listen to.
Yeah.
But the one thing that always struck me is that I never took no for an answer. I was always, someone would say, you can't do that. I will find a way, because I think they're limiting you by their own, you can't do that. Yeah. It says here on paper you can't do that. Well, that's a silly piece of paper. Or that's too far. Yeah. And you go, well, no, it's not too far. If I put one foot in front of the other, it's never too far. So whenever, including in business, someone would say, no, you can't do that, say that. That's not, the client won't like that or something. I would find a way. I'd make the client like that and buy it and sell it, and it would become something that people would go, wow, that's funniest, most moving film ad that I've ever seen. And you thought, had I listened to that first person who said, no, can't do that, then it would never have happened.
So true, and I love that I think in today's world we hear the answer of no so often that we shut down our own creativity. And I believe every single person, I'm interested whether you believe this too, everybody has creativity within them.
Yeah.
It's just often lies untapped because when we grow up, it gets shaped and moulded by our environments where it gets taken away because you're forced to think in a certain way. And I know through all the work that I do, so many people are very much that, was it left-brained, that analytical thinking structure, and the right brain creativity has been shut right down. And yet you can see the beauty of life from someone like yourself who lives in a creative space. What amazing joy it brings not only to yourself and stories and adventures, but now you share them with other people.
Yes.
So no can be a framework that keeps us shut down, but it also shuts down creativity.
Yeah. And that no is many things, isn't it? It's ceilings that you put on yourself, or that no that comes from inside that says, no, you can't do that, Richard. No, no, shush.
So when the final chapter of Richard Loseby closes on on this world.
Well, the bell in the church.
You know, volume 15 of Richard Loseby's life. What would you like to be remembered for? I don't mind. I don't mind it being remembered at all. I mean, that's just. I think I'd be like I want to have loved things. Be remembered of someone like, it was. Yeah, I mean, love is that driver, that thing that love of writing or love of a thing or a person or loved life. It sounds a bit sort of cliche, but I true.
think and got things done, accomplished things. I don't know. I'm not there yet. It's a hard one to think. We'll have to ask me in 20 years or maybe 30, the way things are going.
Yeah. It's I always think it's just such a great question to ask, and because we never know how long we have on this planet, and I always think make the most of it, and you make the most of it, and I see many people who do, but we can also waste many years, and I always think, what is it, whatever age, wherever you're at, that one day that final chapter closes, what mark do you leave on the world?
Well, we plan, too much planning is not good. Just do. It's far better. Do. And then... actually, I gave some writing advice to someone the other day. They said, how do you start? And I said, well, if you've got a story, like a story you already know, start in the middle. Just start writing in the middle and go to the end.
Yes.
And the good thing about that is that if you're a first-time writer, you'll be really good by the time you get to the end. And then you start at the beginning, and you'll be that good writer rather than the average one that started in the beginning, which is, that book's going to be a killer right from the start. And as a way, it's also like cutting a big mountain down into small chunks.
Yeah.
Just start. Yes. Begin. Go. Do.
Go do. Action changes things. One of my favourite lines.
Doesn't it?
Yes. Well, I'm sure there are many more chapters in your life and many more books to be written. And I really thank you for coming today and sharing your stories and your inspiration and the essence within you. And I give my guests this quartz heart. To keep, beautiful. And it's been very special, well looked after, and I give that to my guests because I think it's always a really great reminder about the essence within you, which is heart, which is what you were talking about. And, if you ever feel lost, if you ever feel like, I've lost my path to writing another book, another adventure, come back to heart, because that's where the truth is and that's where the essence lies.
Oh, nice.
That within you. So that's my parting gift to thank you for being on and sharing your stories.
It's been a privilege.
Thanks for tuning in to the show today. We hope you enjoyed it. If you'd like more of this, then subscribe to my channel or click on the QR codes for more tips, tricks, and strategies on how to lead yourself stronger through life.